for finding us on the Tonopah Tool YouTube channel. This video is a walking tour of the old cemetery in Tonopah, Nevada. So find your way to the Clown Motel and get started.
Hi! Welcome to the Tonopah Cemetery. Come check it out.
The Mirojevic brothers, or Marovich brothers. As you step through the gate, right there to your left are the grave sites of the Marovich brothers. A terrible accident happened last night at the Belmont Mine.
June 20th, 1907.
George Morovich wended his way up the hill early last evening to pay his brother a visit, little realizing what fate had in store for him and his. After arriving at the mine, he called to his brother Frank.
During their conversation, Frank Markovich noticed that a loaded car of ore had gotten away and was coming down the hill. He jumped to the side of the track, and in trying to swing onto the car, he fell under it, and the car passed completely over his body, death coming instantly.
When George Marovich saw that his brother had missed the side steps, he sprang to his rescue, but the oncoming car had gained such momentum that before he could drag his brother from the track, he was knocked down by the car, which passed over his legs just above the ankle. He was quickly taken to the Miners' Union Hospital, where it was found necessary to amputate both legs above the ankle.
As it turns out, the ore cart brake had broken and been replaced with an old shovel handle. It broke, preventing Frank from stopping the cart.
These kinds of deaths were common back in the day, and as you can see by the list, many died in the mines of Tonopah. Now for Tonopah hero, Big Bill Murphy. Look just beyond the grave of the Marovich brothers, and you will see the grave of Big Bill Murphy.
William Big Bill Murphy was the hero of the Belmont Mine Fire, February 23, 1911, that killed 17 people, including Big Bill. Bill went down into the mine 2 times to save other miners. On his 3rd trip down, sadly, Bill did not come up. Heroism of an unusual quality of bravery was shown by William Murphy. He is quoted to have said, "Well, boys, I've made 2 trips, and I'm nearly all in. But I will try again." A statue of Bill was built in front of the post office. To the right of the post office, a mural was painted. Both the statue and the mural are a tribute to the courageous man that died in the mines.
So walk a few more rows in and find the grave of Big Bill Murphy. Work your way to the back of the cemetery to the left of the flagpole, and you will find the gravesite of George Davis, otherwise known as Devil Davis.
George Davis was an incredibly popular figure around town. He was the leader of the African American community, and he was also incredibly popular for being a joker and a prankster.
In addition, George Davis was an honorary member of the Eagles, which is a fraternal organization similar to the Elks or the Freemasons.
George Davis was the first African American in Tonopah. He worked his way up from a porter at the Tonopah Club all the way to owning his own saloon, the Eureka Saloon. Tonopah, like most towns in the early 1900s, had its issues with race. But George Davis somehow managed to transcend some of those issues, perhaps because of his personality and popularity. When George would host events at his saloon, many people came, regardless of race.
Some historical documents, like these receipts in purchasing, still exist today from George Davis's business and saloon. In spite of appearing to be the happy social couple, there is a dark story behind George Davis's death. According to the Tonopah Bonanza, Saturday, June 22nd, 1907.
George Devil Davis, one of the best-known characters in Tonopah, was shot shortly before 3 o'clock this morning by the woman who is said to be his wife and died 15 minutes later. The shooting took place in the Eureka Saloon, which was owned by the murdered man. Davis was standing at the crap table near the rear door when the woman entered. She stood directly behind him and not a foot away, and without a word opened fire with a Colt's revolver. The bullet struck Davis between the shoulders, and as he partly turned and was falling, she fired again and continued firing as he went down. Ruth Davis only served 1 year in prison for her crime. After George's death, many witnesses came forward, painting George as an abusive husband. After her release, Ruth ended up in Goldfield working as a prostitute.
Okay, now let's tell you a real Wild West story, the story of Sheriff Tom Logan.
Look up from George Davis's grave and you will see a fenced grave with a sheriff's star. That's the grave of Sheriff Tom Logan. Reading from On the Trail with Sheriff Tom Logan, a brochure by Jackie Bohr, Tom Logan's great-granddaughter. Tom Logan was in his third term as sheriff of Nye County during Tonopah's boom years when he was shot to death by an unruly gambler in the Manhattan Red Light District on April 7, 1906. Dressed only in his nightshirt and unarmed, Logan's final act as an officer of the law was to prevent the piano player from shooting his assailant. Surprisingly, Logan's killer, represented by attorneys Stephen Flynn and future U.S. Senator Patrick McCarran, was later acquitted. Married to Hannah Hamblin and the father of 8 children, Logan was known for his even-handed ways and credited with helping to make early Tonopah the most peaceable mining camp in the world. His death sent shockwaves throughout the land.
Okay, let's see if you can find the 3 graves of the Merton brothers. Turn around, walk in a diagonal toward your right, working your way up toward the corner of the cemetery, and you will find the grave site of the 3 Merton brothers. Between September 1908 and July of 1910, all 3 Merton sons died. Reading from the Tonopah Times Bonanza.
Albert Merton, who succumbed last Thursday afternoon to an attack of typhoid fever, was buried Sunday under the auspice of the Miners' Union.
The ceremonies took place at the Baptist Church, and from there the body was escorted to the burying ground, accompanied by a large number of friends.
Sam Merton was the next brother to pass away.
April 13th, 1909, the funeral of Samuel Merton, who met death in the Montana mine last week, took place yesterday afternoon, and a large number of friends and acquaintances followed the body to its last resting place.
William Merton was the 3rd son to die within 2 years.
July 10th, 1910, William Merton, aged 17 years, died suddenly yesterday morning from heart failure. The lad was employed at E.G. Osborne, driving an express wagon, and while driving along in front of the Tonopah Library building on Central Street, he was observed to fall backwards into the head of the wagon.
Several people rushed to the vehicle, but the boy was dead. The body was removed to the morgue.
After the death of Albert, a total of $298.95 was given to Albert's wife. When William died 2 years later, a benefit was held for the family going through another tragic time. The brothers now sit together in the old cemetery, reunited in death.
So turn around, take a few steps back toward the front fence, and you will find Bina Veralt.
Bina Veralt. A gold digger in a silver town.
Bina Veralt was a classy, beautiful, intelligent, swindling woman. She, along with her best friend, Isella Brown, ran a love syndicate in New York City. Bina and Isella placed an ad in the paper claiming to be wealthy widows. Men would come to their house calling on them, and they would be seduced into giving the women gifts.
He had a bouncer at the door. He would make sure all the men who entered were wealthy, but he missed one. A gentleman who was low on funds fell in love with Bina.
When Bina refused to return his gifts, the man went to the authorities.
At the end of their con, the women had collected over $100,000 in fine clothing, jewelry, gifts, and money. In today's dollars, that is approximately $2.5 million. Bina and Isella were both arrested and charged. The story was headline news all over the country.
During the trial, Bina pawned some diamond rings and fled the authorities.
A year later, she ended up in Tonopah. She claimed her name was Bernie Vera, and she spent her time in the local high-class saloons. But the year running from the law had taken its toll, and Bina died from alcoholism not long after she arrived.
In her home, the authorities found beautiful gowns, jewelry, and furs, as well as pawn tickets from New York City with her real name.
Bina was once again in the news as the story of her life in New York and tragic death in the rough and tumble mining camp of Tonopah made headlines all over the world.
That's all for now, but don't stop here. Go to town, have some fun. Visit Tonopah.